and honestly so much more that's beyond what meets the naked eye. In today's video, we try to survive 100 days in Minecraft beneath the terrifying waters, which is roughly around 33 hours worth of footage. This video wasn't the easiest to record, so if you guys could smash that subscribe button, it'd mean the world to me. Now, let's get on to the video. Day 1. I started off with this capsule looking thing that's a little bit above the water. The thing is, I decided to take everything under, because after I enter the water, there's no coming back up. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Trash, cables, the bookshelf, the container, the literal thing that gives oxygen, I took it off. My first two reactions were one, to make a big one, obviously, and two, to make doors. Now, if you guys didn't know, if you place a door underwater, it actually doesn't fill up the area within the door. So that was my main form of breathing underneath the water for the time being. As unsettling as it may be, my first interaction with the wildlife was actually with creepers. Yeah, those exist. Instead of creepers that are on land, they're little fish that float and make just as much damage. But on the bright side, their damage rate is a lot lower than the creeper. So that was kind of a win. On the first initial day, I didn't actually do very much damage. I just had to survive by getting to know my surroundings. There were a bunch of fish, and we did in fact somewhat encounter a shark. Luckily, it didn't leave. The creepers found the way, and down to the little shark. After finding the fish, I decided to go into it, and I wanted to make it into my base. It was already somewhat built, and it was a bunch of research I came to the realization that not much progress is going to be done if I stay within the water zone, aka traveling with doors. I need to figure something out. So what I decided to do was actually start mining downwards into a little bit of cave house of mine. So that's exactly what we began setting up. Just a bit of a heads up, if the screen or just like my environment ever gets blurry, just know it gets blurry every time it rains when there's a thunderstorm going on. It's just a bit of an indication, and the ocean gets a little harder to actually survive in when that does happen. So just keep that in mind. Days 2 to 5. Within this duration of time, I finished up making the little cave shelter of ours. I also quickly realized, how the heck am I gonna get sheep? Like, think about it. Sheep don't spawn underwater. So how in the world am I gonna get, I don't know. I didn't really look into it that much, or if it's even possible to somewhat beat it underwater with certain crucial aspects of the game. But we were gonna give it a chance. Luckily for us, I quickly caught on to two very important things. One, we actually started off with a canister of air from the shuttle. So we actually had some form of air. And luckily for us, we also looted that shuttle, so we got the very thing that replenishes the oxygen within the oxygen filter. And the second most valuable thing is the fact that I was freezing to death. That happens, especially underneath the water, because it's freezing cold down there. The deeper you go, the colder it gets. That's basically the concept. You can see when I'm freezing in the top right corner of my screen. It just doesn't tell you what kind of amplitude it is, because there's multiple stages and one that just doesn't leave. That was a problem we had to look into, but for the time being, it was a very mild cold. Nothing really happened besides the fact that I could see my breath time to time. During this time, I also decided to move around a little bit and find some stuff, aka rocks, shells, etc. You know, the stuff that you find on the ocean floor. So I just decided to look around for some. I found this material called salt. I wasn't entirely sure what it was for, so I just completely ignored it. After looking into some of the recipes, I then come to the realization that we need this very specific material to make these things called heating pads. Now here's why it's important. The heating pads actually heat us down when we're freezing to death. So these were a very crucial aspect, and I wanted a whole bunch of it, so I went hunting for them. Days 5 to 10. After our scavenger hunt for the most lime I can possibly get, I didn't even get that many. I could barely reach even a stack, because they were a little tricky to find. But it's alright, I looted most of it, and we should be good to go. I came back into the little base that we had within the cave shelter, and I got to work. I created a shovel, then started digging up some dirt. The reason for that is because I wanted to plant the tree. Not only would it give us apples, but it would also give us wood, which is a really useful material just in general. I also may or may not know any other way of getting wood, so this was our only hope. Hopefully that grows up. I tried using a little bit of my bone meal, but it didn't actually work, so whatever, we'll move on. But I did take the matter very seriously. I then went on to searching for some wood because there were some nearby trees. I just didn't know what type of trees they were, so I went right up to it, up close and personal, and decided to smack it with an axe. We did in fact get the logs, but the logs didn't decraft into planks. I didn't actually know what they did. I tried using just enough items, but it just didn't tell me anything. What a lame block. Once we're back at our base, I soon realized that there's a bit of a progression system within the game that's also known as advancements. The thing is, there are stat points that you put into certain different things. There's chemistry, biology, physics, and occult. Yeah, they're a little strange, but hear me out. Basically, if you wanted something, you'd have to get the certain amount of stat points within your overall character to unlock them. That way you unlock the recipe, and you're then able to progress further into the game by crafting different things. On that page, there were a bunch of cool looking stuff, but I did not care. I need to figure out how to make that heating pad, and fast. Days 10 to 20. I didn't have enough points, so we needed to do a bit of exploring. I then decided to go mining, because we needed more iron anyways. I didn't want to expend it all on heating pads. I went on for a bit and didn't find much. Then I decided to take a different direction, and eventually I hit a bit of an underwater cave. The interesting thing about this was it wasn't any normal underwater cave. It was one of those magma ravines. It was definitely the first time I've ever seen one of these, especially a water cave that deep into the mines. We were at y=11. I wouldn't be surprised if we found diamonds there. Sadly, we weren't as fortunate. What made things 100 times worse was the fact that I was freezing to death, not to mention there was pressure. The effect is known as overpressure. Not entirely sure what it exactly does besides kind of like suffocate us in a sense, but it was definitely an issue and we were definitely taking damage from it. I decided to risk it all because I wanted to know one very important thing. Was there or was there not lava underneath that sheet of obsidian and magma blocks? And that's exactly what I risked my life to find out. The reason as to why this is so important is because I had a bit of a plan in mind, but it required the nether. And in all honesty, it somewhat did work out and somewhat didn't, but you'll get to see that if you watch till the end of the video. After a bunch of mining, a bunch of freezing to death, getting pressure over our heads, and eating a bunch of food so we don't die, we cracked into some lava. This was perfect. All I needed to do was then get buckets. So I quickly ran back up because I kind of ran out of food, so that was a bit of an issue. I needed to heal myself off of my frostbite and my pressure. Luckily for us, we actually had some heating pads to start out with from the beginner shuttle. Let's just say we had to cling on to a little bit of our life here. But it was fine, nothing happened, we're good. Both of the effects were gone and we're completely fine. Luckily we got back up in time and there was, you know, we were good. I needed to regenerate my hearts because if I even went up there or back into the mines with no health whatsoever, the series would have ended. And I didn't want that, so I started eating rotten flesh. I don't regret it. We gotta do what we gotta do. The reason I was regenerating health is because I wanted to go back into the water and get some cod. Interesting. There's no fish, I guess. That's exactly what I did. I got the cod, came back, smelted it up along with the iron. After smelting a bunch of the iron, I then made a quick armor set of full iron armor. This was crucial because there were a bunch of mobs out there, and I didn't want to die from some jellyfish. Using the leftover iron, I decided to make a bunch of buckets. 12 to be exact, because that's how many lava buckets we needed for the nether portal, and decided to make the journey back down. But right before we left, I also predicted that we were gonna freeze again, and I wanted to make sure that doesn't happen. So, I decided to invest some points into the heating pad. Made myself as many heating pads as I possibly could with the amount of lime that we collected in the beginning. And then we went down. Days 20 to 25. This is where things got a little bit interesting, because we started making some progression. We were on our way down, but we had 43, exactly, on the dot, 43 heating pads. We were not going to freeze, and I made sure of that. Notice how I say that with full confidence, but I end up freezing anyways? Regardless of the matter and whatever happened down there, we had food so we can regenerate, and we got the 12 lava buckets that we needed. We quickly scurried back up, but then I noticed that the effects didn't disappear. I still had them up here. Maybe it's a glitch or something because I wasn't exactly dying from it, but it wasn't really the most pleasant thing to see on the top right corner of my screen. On the bright side of things, my tree actually grew. So we got some wood. We unfortunately didn't get any apples, but that was completely fine. Wood was the backbone of nearly everything that I can ever wish to craft or gain materials to craft other stuff with. So I was completely fine with that. No issues here. I collect the goodies from the tree. Right after, I decide to start working on the portal. It's a very simplistic thing. Obviously, there's a lot more efficient ways of doing it, and I know that for a fact. This is just how I do it, so don't judge me on it. I do have to say though, on my journey to getting a flint and steel, but flint in specific, the gravel was being really moody. I actually really disliked it. I broke that piece of gravel so many times, it was annoying. But eventually I did manage to get it, and I lit up the portal. Days 25 to 35. If you've ever watched any of my previous 100-day videos, you'll know that my luck isn't really the best, and this video was no exception. I entered the Nether, soon to realize that I messed up. My plan was to get food from Hoglins, but this mod is a 1.14.4 mod. If you guys are still confused, there's no Hoglins. Hoglins never existed during this version of Minecraft. That's only 1.16. This version of Minecraft didn't have Hoglins, didn't have piglins. I couldn't trade. I had to play this old school, and I was not prepared for it. I was not looking forward to this journey. This was completely different from what I had envisioned into my mind. I just wanted to get some gold from a bastion, trade it with some piglins, then find one of those blue mushroom biome things, and, you know, get it over with. But this was just not expected. To be completely blunt with you guys, no progress was made in this portion. I wish there was some sort of highlight for this bit, but there really isn't. I just ran around looking for a nether castle, and I didn't have much luck really. It was kind of annoying. Did I mention I also spent a lot of time looking for gold in the nether? Like the netherrack gold mixture thingies that you get in 1.16? Yeah, those didn't exist, but I didn't realize. Days 35 to 40. We managed to find the nether castle. Yes, I know it's called a fortress. I just like calling it a nether castle. Alright, just putting that out there. Honestly, this journey could have taken a lot less time if it wasn't for me being careful. I didn't want to die. I did in fact manage to find a bit of endermen, but I didn't really get anything from them. Kind of a bummer. Oh well though, we made it, alright? That's what matters. We made it. So I quickly went inside the fortress and I started looking around the place. Had a bit of a warm welcome from wither skeletons and some magma cubes. The thing is, I actually didn't find any bit of a blaze spawner, which was a little weird. But then again, this nether castle was a little weird in general, so I couldn't exactly blame it. A lot of the pieces were blocked off by natural terrain, which was a bit of an issue. Luckily for us, the chances of blazes spawning just randomly within the middle of the castle was high, especially in this older version of Minecraft, so we were good. At the end of the day, my main focus was still to find a blaze spawner, so even if I did find one or two, I'd kill it, maybe get like one or two, but I'd still end up trying to look for the blaze spawner, and I didn't have any luck. I practically explored the entire nether castle at this point, and I didn't really know what to do, but I decided to turn back and noticed that the spawn rates for the blazes are substantially higher, and I utilized that heavily. Days 41 to 50. After getting our hands on more than enough blaze rods, we then decided to just leave. We didn't like the nether castle. On the way there, we did find some endermen, but they didn't actually drop anything. Eventually, we started walking around a whole bunch. I was not going to the overworld looking for endermen. That was just not happening, so I looked around in the nether. We didn't find that many, but every once in a while, I'd definitely encounter one. I'd trap them in a boat and completely smack them. As usual, my chances are complete garbage. I barely caught any ender pearls, so I had to kill so many endermen before I even got a substantial amount. Like, bro, Dream, how you doing this stuff? You be speedrunning and RNGing like it's child's play. Like, what is this? But when I try, I get like glowstone in the chest. On a lucky day, mind you. On a freaking lucky day. Which was kind of why it took such a long duration. Kind of annoying, but it was just part of the process, and I'm kind of used to it by now. 1 enderman, 2 enderman, 3 enderman. You get the point. You guys get the point. Eventually, I do manage to get exactly 12 ender pearls. I didn't have the patience to get any more despite us having 15 blaze rods. So just stick with me, okay? Like, listen. You'll see why this was a big mistake on my part later on if you watch till the end. Ugh, this was such a waste of time. Anyways, we go back through the portal and get home. We had everything we needed. There was no point of being there anymore. So we dipped. Days 50 to 55. When I got back, I realized I didn't have enough food, so I decided to go out in the middle of the night, mind you, to get some food. It was a big mistake. It's very cold, not to mention, there's also everything around me that I can barely see in the environment. If a shark decided to pull up on me, I would not even know. I started taking a bunch of damage, which I actually couldn't take because I didn't have any food, so I quickly scurried back after I realized how big of a mistake this was. And I just sat there looking at stat points and crafting recipes. There was nothing I can do. I was quite literally stuck in that area until it was daytime. I didn't have a bed. There was no sheep down here. What else do you want me to do? Once it was daytime again, I then decided to go out into the water. At this point, we really didn't have a lot of health that we were working with, as you can see. So, we had to be a little bit careful. I did in fact find some ruins, which were kind of interesting. Within the ruins, I found a bit of a chest that had bread in it, which was a lifesaver. Well, it actually had wheat in it, but we crafted the bread with the wheat. So technically it had bread in it. The only thing I was worried about is the fact that I came home with half a heart remaining. The series could have ended. After all of that nether grinding, the series could have literally just flopped dead. So that was risky. I didn't want to do that again. I ate the rotten flesh that I had in my inventory. Then shortly after, I decided to eat the bread to get the most amount of hearts that I possibly can back. Hey, look at me being big brain, huh? Then I realized, because I wasn't at full health and I didn't know if I wanted to go back up there with everything trying to kill me. So what I thought about was, hey, this is an older version of Minecraft. Didn't at one point piglins used to drop raw pork chops? So I decided to test that theory out. I went back into the nether, angered a bunch of pigments, not a good idea, and decided to kill a whole bunch of them. What I ended up getting is a bunch of golden swords and rotten flesh. So at the end of the day, I did somewhat benefit off of it because rotten flesh did in fact heal my health up. Though it's not a very healthy choice, and my hunger bar, yeah, no, I didn't really like it that much. After I got back from that trip, I decided to make another oxygen tank because I was looking into the double oxygen tank. I didn't take into consideration how many physics points I needed, so I wasn't exactly able to craft one right off the bat, but it was definitely in my mind and I was working on getting not only the materials for it, but also the points for it. What you guys probably don't know is the way that you summon the final boss is that you have to collect the materials to craft it. After you craft it and right click it on the sea, it'll then spawn in the boss. That's how it works. Surprisingly, crafting the material isn't actually that hard. It's just a bunch of rotten flesh and gold. Super simple crafting recipe. I'm not sure why it's so simple, but that was one of the goals. I made mine early so I don't end up using those materials for something really dumb. I also needed to make a base. That was one of the goals of this challenge in general, and I was going to get that done. I was also not going to cheapskate it with the base that I currently had. I wanted to build a full-on base, and we still had plenty of time, so what was the rush, right? So I decided to look around and looted a whole bunch of them. That's where I got the materials such as the build-only iron slabs and the build-only iron blocks. That was really beneficial, especially towards what the final product looked like. In this duration of time, I also decided to get a bunch of glass by mining a bunch of sand. That was also something else I did. This is somewhat of the result / progress that I've made on it so far. It's looking pretty nice in my opinion. This is in fact just a main room. I was definitely going to extend it further than this. Days 55 to 65. I was definitely feeling like I was slacking off a bit, so I decided to go back into mining. I need to get some diamonds and that was a main priority, because I probably wouldn't even be able to kill the Ender Dragon, let alone the underwater boss. I probably could have, but I don't have that kind of dream level skills, so I had to work something out. And that I did. I spent quite some time in the mines. I found plenty of lapis, plenty of redstone. I didn't actually mine up these two because I didn't think they were that crucial. I mined a little bit of redstone. I left some of the lapis near the beginning of the cave because I knew I would have found it eventually, and I just started strip mining at y=11 and just kept going with it, honestly. I know that there are better methods on finding diamonds, but listen, okay, this is just the one I'm comfortable with. During this process, I also go back to that one underwater cave that we found that we got the initial obsidian from for our nether portal, and decided to get 2 more obsidian from there after making a diamond pickaxe with the first run for diamonds. This is because I wanted to make a bit of an enchantment table. I wanted to enchant some of the gear that I had to improve my chances of survival. Where was I gonna get a book, you might ask? Well, say no more. I basically got or stole a bunch of books from the shuttle that we were spawned into. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I basically looted the entire thing. So bookshelves included, we got a bunch of books and we used that to make ourselves an enchantment room. It was very scuffed and I forgot to place the bookshelves before enchanting. Yeah, I'm not the best at this. Day 65 to 75. The reason why the intervals got a little longer is because in these periods of times, there was less happening within a lengthened period of time. This was when I dedicated a bunch of time into enchanting my stuff with Protection 1, which isn't that bad, seeing as we didn't have that many books to begin with, so we couldn't really filter them out. Not to mention, we were on a time limit and I didn't want to waste too much time on that, but I did end up using those iron blocks that we stole from the other places. Luckily for us, we actually had a pretty good amount, and that meant base extensions, so that's exactly what we did. We extended the base and made it bigger, better, and just overall nicer looking. With the power of my creativity, I also wanted to make a bit of a glass tunnel. Now, glass tunnels under the water look amazing. Added onto shaders, added onto all these sea creatures, I thought it would look really nice, so I decided to do that. Day 75 to 80. A bit of an update on the environment. Instead of freezing me to death, they wanted to burn me to death. They switched up big time, and I didn't actually know this was a feature until it was a little too late. It's fine though. If you guys didn't know, diamond armor actually has the most fluctuating defense system for freezing to death and burning to death. So I think in our case, we didn't have anything to worry about. So I just commenced building. There's a bunch of glass that was needed and obviously I already smelted it up. So we were just placing the glass and making the place look really nice. Days 80 to 85. this is what it turned out to be like. It's honestly a really pretty sight. I really enjoyed it and I really liked it. Personally, it's one of my favorite underwater bases I've ever made just in general, and I haven't even made that many, so keep that in mind. Oh, and by the way, I also found out that with kelp, when you break a strand of kelp, there's a chance that you get the biomass that we were looking for. That biomass, put 2 of them together in the crafting table and you get yourself some string. Get 4 string and you get yourself some wool. So that's actually how I made my bed. In this duration, I also managed to get enough physics points to craft us a double oxygen tank. So instead of 250 oxygen, we had 500 oxygen. I was feeling pretty confident in the water starting from this. Days 85 to 90. Do you guys remember those flash floods that I mentioned in the intro? Yeah, that kind of happened to me. They work in the sense that anything below the bottom of the sea level of the place that you're at gets entirely flooded, and there's a bit of an 80% chance of a shark attack. We got 2 sharks. I don't even know the percent chance of that. At least the main facility was fine, but everything underneath it, the cave, the mines, the enchantment table, the storage units down there, they were all taken away from us. It was all gone. I didn't want any of my limbs gone, and honestly, I was not gonna go down there and risk my life over sharks. Okay? I was not gonna do that. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it did kind of suck. It was a bit of a detriment to us, but luckily we had most of the important stuff, the Eye of Enders, and we got ourselves the boss spawn egg, so we weren't that far behind. It's just, I do wish we could bring back a little bit more stuff from the storage containers below, but it shouldn't be that big of a detriment. Right after, I built up the courage to finally go outside, set up a little area for ourselves, and finally attempt killing the boss. I was confident. I had diamond armor. It was enchanted. I had an enchanted axe. I had a shield. What more could I ask for? And the boss was spawned. There we go. The fight has commenced. The thing is, it's not actually the boss that you should be worried about, but much rather its lackey. They are the king of drown, so relentlessly they shoot puppets at you, aka rounds. I'm not sure if they actually have a buff, but they did definitely hit hard. Not to mention, they were in hordes. I also got this potion effect called underwater. I had no idea what it did, and still don't to this day. I have no idea. I did feel a little slower though during this fight. I tried attacking it, and at first I didn't think I did any hearts of damage, just in general. I felt like I wasn't doing anything to it, but that's because I really wasn't. The thing is, you have to kill its lackeys before it becomes a vulnerable target. Prior to it being a vulnerable target, it's immortal. It could literally just go on for ages, not dying whatsoever. After figuring out the system of how it works, I decided to get a little bit more confident. I decided to push myself over at the drowns and completely annihilate them. I tested out my theory and it was true. I decided to start hitting it and it definitely took a bunch of damage. But it started to get its armor back after summoning more puppets. A couple rounds in and I actually get taken to a very low amount of health. They started to overwhelm me and I decided to move back a little bit because it was very, very hard to keep track of. And we got him. That's one of the bosses down. All that's left is the Ender Dragon and we're done. It did have a drop and it gave us a wither flower. Not a wither rose, a wither flower. I had no clue what this did. It wasn't a recipe for anything. It also had no use. It was just there. It had a little bit of a description, but I didn't really understand what it meant, so at the end of the day, it was useless. There was no way around that. It was just the reality of things. But listen, okay, it was a bit of a souvenir, so I'll take it as that. I'll take it as that. Days 90 to 95. Moving on past this, just like any other world, I threw that ender pearl, followed it into the deep depths of the sea. This led me to a couple of biomes, but one that I wanted to actually point out, and it's a bit of a highlighted moment for me, is a little bit of the thing that I like to call the dead zone. Everything down there is pitch black. It's even darker than usual. There's no saturation anywhere. When you look around, it's just all pitch black. But the thing that scared me the most was the skeletons down there. Yes, you've heard of drowns, you know, they're drowned zombies, but did you ever hear of drowned skeletons? Yeah, no, me neither. Me neither. Honestly, I was not expecting this, but from what it seems like, it seemed to be contaminated skeletons, because that was also what was going around with the coral reef below me. Everything was contaminated. Everything looked dead. There was no life within this biome. And what made it even worse is the fact that when the skeletons hit you, you get withered. Withered? Why? Like, what for? There was no need for that. Very unnecessary. But once I found that out, I decided to just dip. Like, I was not being there. You know, I was really close to dying there. And no, not happening. So I was doing my little dash, I was running away from them, when suddenly I then realized I ran out of air. I checked my inventory, no doors, no nothing, just pitch black. Once I start losing health, I then quickly decide to start mining downwards. After I mine downwards a bit, then I go in one direction and completely just save my life. Half a heart. That's how much I was at, because like I couldn't breathe. We're underwater, so half a heart is what I was left with within that little tiny crevice. I was just stuck there. After calming down a bit, I then placed my oxygen refiller. I place it down, wait for it to regenerate, and use that to get brand new oxygen. That way we were actually able to move again. I probably should have foresaw this. I have a bar. There is an oxygen bar. I guess I just forgot to look over there. I wasn't expecting this to be such a detriment to my food. Now that's something I wasn't actually very keen of, so you guys should pay attention to that, because it's something important that I kind of undermined for the last task of ours. Big loss, but it's okay, we're still moving forward, we got this. Eventually the ender pearl decided to go downwards. This was actually in one of those obsidian and magma areas. It was kind of interesting. I didn't really mind it too much. I was just praying that there wasn't any lava underneath, so that was my only fear with digging straight down. But at the end of the day, I decided to take the chance. There was water above me. What's the worst that can happen? Lo and behold, we were in. It did take a little bit of a while, but when I looked around, like, when I say this place is astonishing, I mean it. Like, this place actually looked sick. I was expecting some basic, normal Minecraft stronghold, but what I found was a lot better than what I expected. Minecraft, you should take some tips. I decided to use those fibers I mentioned before to make some string, that way I can get a bow. Even though I had 4 arrows, those 4 arrows could potentially get me 4 of the towers, so I was willing to make that trade. I double checked right before to see if I was missing anything. I also had 3 water buckets just in case we lost anything. I threw out a bunch of garbage, and I was finally ready. Days 95 to 100. This is it. This is the final straw. This is what we've been waiting for. And without hesitation, I jumped straight into it. And the fight began. I quickly started using my blocks to get up to the towers, as anyone would, and started taking out some of the crystals. What I did notice though, out of nowhere, I started getting withered. Now, I didn't really know what it was correlated with at first, but then later on I found out that the dragon breath from the dragon gives you wither. Why? Okay, now hear me out. Honestly, it's either one of 2 things, which I didn't actually verify. Either 1, this mod made it so that the dragon breath gives you wither, or 2, that's just how Minecraft 1.14 is. So, I was honestly confused regardless of what choice it was. Normally going into the nether for a speedrun, it requires quite a bit of food, and I didn't have that much. I roughly had less than 16, so I wasn't doing good in the food department at all. And adding the wither onto that, I'd basically have to eat my way to live. That's exactly what I did. My food replenished twice as fast as it normally would have, making this that much harder. After realizing where it derived from, I tried my very best avoiding it, though I couldn't avoid it at all costs. The further it was from me, and the less of it I took in, the less wither I got. That's something that I actually did pick up on. I also noticed there was a bit of a structure, but it looked kind of dematerialized. It looked like a little bit of a bridge, and it was kind of cool. But that's actually a little bit important later on. Even the end pillars looked a little different. There was lava oozing out of some of them, and even this like strange ore that I didn't get to mine, which kind of sucked because I was more focused on the ender dragon. Eventually, I ran out of food. I foresaw this, I honestly did. After I saw that it withered me, and it can wither me like constantly, I realized that I did not have enough food for this. This was a problem. I quickly looked into my inventory and tried to eat kelp just stale for some reason. Bit of an L there, but listen up, okay? I soon realized that I had to smelt it, so I placed down some furnaces, started smelting that stuff, but also realized that kelp is almost as useless as berries, and its saturation is complete garbage. That was fun. Yeah, fun. Now you might be wondering, where did you get the fuel from? Well, you see, we had some leftover wood. What's even worse is we didn't have enough wood to smelt all of them, so what I had to do was, on the bridge thing, right? There was a piece that fell off of it that was on the floor. So we went over there, looted the wood from there, and used that to smelt the kelp. I don't know how it came to be, but this is the reality, and we had to work with what we had, okay? Somehow, we managed to somewhat pull through, and, kept regenerating health with a very, very, very low amount of kelp that we did have. Luckily for us, I did know where it derived from, so I decided to take less and less of it each time, which was really good on our part. After getting all the crystals, I then decided to head over to the middle and start attacking it. The issue was, every single time that the dragon would get up or either hit me, fling me into the air and I water bucket clutch, I get withered. Despite me having a stack of kelp, I slowly got less and less of it. Eventually, I did run out of it entirely. But luckily for me, within the duration of the time that I had the kelp for, I lowered the ender dragon so low that it was at just a sliver of health. And right there and then, that's it. That's the climax. Oh my, literally no food. I wanted to also explore the, extra lands beyond, but I didn't have enough time to do so, which was kind of a bummer. There was probably some cool terrain generation that I kind of wanted to check out. Assuming that it exists. When did the end lands come out? I don't even know. But if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys' support, and don't forget to hit that like button and also hit that subscribe if you want more content like this. It'll let me know that you guys like the content. You know what I mean? And if you guys have any suggestions for any 100-day videos, let me know in the comment section below. What, you're still here? I guess you want the technicalities of everything, huh? To put it simple, we used a mod pack for this challenge of ours. The mod pack is linked in the description. The thing is, we did in fact tweak a bunch of the features, terrain generation, and even the biome. So pulling this off yourselves is going to be kind of hard unless you have some coding knowledge. So just keep that in mind. But with that being said, hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next video.